Well, that's kind of a wrap on phase four of the MCU. This was a long year of a lot of really hyped up movies that honestly didn't take us that far. Uh, I'm looking back just at what I watched. I saw Wakanda Forever. I saw Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange. What was that one called? And all the way back, I think I've seen everything in theaters since the last Spider-Man movie, No Way Home, and that was the high note for me. That was actually a good movie standing on its own, but that actually felt like an event. Everything else pretty underwhelming. And in the meantime, we had She-Hulk, and that was that was not great either. So, I mean, let's sort of unpack it. What did we gain from phase four?
Actually,
Just silence. I'm like complete silence. I just kind of feel like Marvel has just become this crazy cult and they're releasing so much content that it's impossible to watch all of it unless you make Marvel your full-time job. And yeah, like I've watched a couple episodes of some of the shows, and it's like you said She-Hulk. It was like, what has happened to the whole Hulk
It
like
was
franchise of Marvel?
yeah, this was a rough time to be a superhero because everybody's laughing at you now. You know, we've gone beyond being snarky Iron Man or Deadpool and having self-awareness, and now you're a joke. You know, Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man was a joke because they were acknowledging his franchise was the least successful. And Thor:
that
Love
was
and
messed up.
Thunder,
They should not have
yeah,
been doing that.
Thor: Love and Thunder, it wasn't an action movie. It wasn't a Marvel movie. It was about this guy
So
finding love. It was
I specifically didn't go see it because the reviews immediately afterwards were like, Natalie Portman's back, but it was weird. Like
it was super
it
weird.
wasn't. And
And
so I haven't seen it because the reviews were like, just wait for it to come out. Maybe don't go
yeah,
to theaters to watch it.
if
Like,
if there's one thing that really got run off the rails in phase four, I think opening up the multiverse Pandora's box made things a lot more convoluted. Really, it brought up some continuity questions and errors between
well,
shows and movies. And we've said it a million times here, but like the brand of the MCU is
yeah.
hyper continuity. Everything fits in, everything makes
And
sense if you're paying attention.
that's the thing at this broad level with, and every time they open up a new show, a new movie, a new franchise, it makes it harder and harder and harder. I mean, almost impossible to protect the continuity
Yeah.
across all movies. There's no way. Like there's just no way. And they keep making it harder, and I think focusing on the broad picture rather than like making each movie its own wonderful film as a standalone film. And I feel like we've gotten away from that. Honestly, I would say after everything after Endgame is just too much.
I
Like,
mean, Endgame should have been the end. And that was
yeah,
now it's a matter of inventing new foes and finding reasons for people to interact. Finding a new Black Panther because continuity can't exist without that actor, they've
yeah,
decided. And they're writing themselves into a hole where everything needs to be these heavy CGI movies where everything's shot on a green screen. And they've gotten so wildly out of control that the stories and the characters have become totally unrelatable.
yeah. I think you're also in that losing a lot of what made Marvel great. Like Mark Ruffalo in Hulk, those were great movies. I think Hulk came out when I was like 10 or 11. Like it came out a good while ago. Iron Man, you're talking like incredible movies. That to me when you look at sort of like the Marvel formula, everything changed after Iron Man. I mean,
Well,
even
that's where
Captain
they got their
America.
yeah, that's where they
Yeah,
developed this tone where they could be humorous and
yeah,
the superheroes could be regular people but with superpowers. And that was appealing, but they've really overplayed their hand there where now every
yeah.
character speaks the same way. They all have the same sense of humor and by the way, on the in Wakanda Forever, anytime they tried to do comedy in those scenes where they're talking about like shades of lipstick or something, I was like, you guys have no gift for comedy. This is not a funny scene. It was
Yeah.
trivial. You want to talk about stuff that could have been cut out to make that, a reasonable duration. That you could have cut the comedy there. It didn't add much.
But I think also it's trying to play into this commercialized formula that Marvel has created and tried to keep alive. But yeah, I think
Sure.
in some ways Wakanda Forever really overplayed that. Whereas in the previous movies, like Michael B. Jordan is in himself like almost kind of funny. Like even though in his script, in his character, in his choices, he was such a good actor that I think it made it funny. I think Marvel is kind of trying to get more into the number side. I think it's becoming so commercialized. They're only
Yeah.
focused on like what's going to be catchy for the moment. And they're stepping away from people that can really bring the stories to life. Like the reason I haven't seen a lot of these Marvel movies is like I don't want to see Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Like I'm sorry, I don't. Like I still kind of miss Tobey Maguire. And Andrew Garfield is an incredible actor.
Yep.
Like I don't really know why they didn't keep going with that. I think as far as a casting choice, Andrew Garfield makes more sense after Tobey Maguire.
There's some hope. There's been rumblings about them bringing him back for another project. But
then
Dan,
there were rumors this week that Tom Holland has officially signed on for the fourth Spider-Man movie, which water was wet. That was going to happen after that last movie made like $2 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, and my 2 cents on this would be, I think after Endgame, what they should have done is looked inward and started to go back to what made phase 1 and phase 2 so good, which is where they were giving, like you said, Angelina, like they were telling these stories that work really well on their own without necessarily having to build towards something like, I mean, here's the thing. We all kind of knew at some point after, like, I think Thor and Captain America at least were coming out, they're building up to the Avengers. They had announced it. This is where we were going. Edward Norton was getting recast with Mark Ruffalo to play the Hulk in the Avengers movie. All of that stuff was happening. And they were like, as long as these individual movies don't like totally bomb, which one of those movies didn't all make a ton of money, I think only really the Iron Man trilogy in phase 1 and 2 were like all really super successful. The Captain America his first movie and the first 2 Thor movies weren't really all that good in terms of the money they made, but they were like generally well liked.
My biggest issue with the Captain America casting was that he was already in the Marvel universe in Fantastic Four, and they just rewrote him. They were like, no,
but they don't count that because that was Fox.
Sorry.
So that wasn't Marvel Studios.
But no, it's a good point because if they can bring Tobey Maguire back for Spider-Man No Way Home from the Sonyverse, they could bring back Chris Evans as the Human Torch.
Well, they're using the whole multiverse idea of variants and all that. But the point I was trying to make was essentially the fact that they should have got, okay, this is something that Shang-Chi did well. I think Shang-Chi is a great example of what the best of Phase 4 looked like, which there wasn't a whole lot of, but I think Shang-Chi to me was my favorite Phase 4 thing. That, Miss Marvel, and both of those projects, TV show and movie, what they did well was they developed the character they introduced, the world of that character, and they focused on that. They weren't trying to backdoor pilot another character's like project down the road. They weren't trying to do all these connections to introduce, like, at the end of She-Hulk, Scar. Oh, boom, there you go. Ugly haircut. Hey guys, I'd like to meet my son, Scar, for like half a second. I'm like, why? No need. Like, do it somewhere else. All of that stuff that like She-Hulk did. Eternals did that movie's terrible. I'm sorry. Like Chloe Zhao, I don't know how she produced such a turd, but whatever.
Let me take you through how one produces a turd. But here's
Doctor
the
Strange
thing.
was too much. There was
Yeah.
way too much going on. But again, the biggest point of this is Marvel with every, like you said, with every project in Phase 4, they either trying to introduce a new character or some new piece of mythology that in some direct or indirect way clashes with the already pre-existing mythology of the MCU. Whether it's the Eternals and like, you know, there's a huge thing sticking through like half of the Earth's oceans that should have broken the planet in half, even if it showed up that much. I'm like, sure, so he didn't come out all the way, but that's enough to like crack the like blow the planet apart, whatever.
Yeah.
Then the huge Egyptian gods in Moon Knight. I'm like, how does this all play together? It doesn't play together.
Well, that's sort of what we've been seeing. We had Egyptian gods in Moon Knight, and we had Greek gods in Thor: Love and Thunder, and it does sort of feel, like you said, a little culty. We are getting, it seems like what they're setting up is it's going to be superheroes versus gods, you know? And now that we have this Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special coming up, I would not be surprised if Santa Claus makes an appearance. He probably will. He's mythical.
He's a character in the Marvel comics.
And he is in the Marvel universe. So, you know.
I will say, I think those movies are still some of my favorite because they're so funny. Like Chris Pratt is so
I love Guardians of the
funny.
Galaxy. The first one was hilarious.
Also, Groot is just so cute. Like I can't. But I think not enough of those movies, like not enough of the new Marvel movies have that. Like it's missing the sort of like star quality about either the lead, the sort of even just the relationship between the cast. It's missing something.
It's the watchability. I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like I say this to everybody. I'm like, you put on Guardians of the Galaxy on repeat, I'll watch it 4 times in a row. But I can't say that about most Marvel projects. But there's a few, and the few that I can, like Shang-Chi, for example, is another one. They are the best of the MCU. The first Iron Man movie I can probably watch 3 times in a row because it's an enjoyable.
You think Shang-Chi is one of the best?
Yeah. Wow. Oh yeah. I thought it was speaking of best or worst of Phase 4. Shang-Chi to me, along with Miss Marvel, they may be like 1A, 1B for me, were the 2 best things to come out of Phase 4. And then maybe I would put No Way Home, Spider-Man No Way Home at number 3. That's my ranking at the top.
So what I would say is that in the way that we watch these movies has also changed, because in Phase 1 through 3, we had good stories, good characters, relatable and familiar arcs that we could follow. And now we watch these for cameos, for post-credit scenes, and for little Easter eggs. We don't watch these for the plot anymore, and they're not made so much for the plot anymore. And I think that's causing them to slip. I think that's where DC is gaining ground. And if there's anything that we can hope for in the next phase, it's that we should see more relatable characters. We should get back to single character arcs because not everything is connected, and nor does it have to be. And we can tell better stories going forward. I think that's my big critique of Phase 4, if I could put it all in one thing.
How would you treat Phase 4 as a whole, Angelina? Like, do you think it's the worst?
I haven't watched
so
most of them. Yeah, I haven't watched most of them because the reviews are kind of they're all kind of. I did watch Shang-Chi and I did think it was good. Do I think it was one of the best Marvel movies? Oh, no.
Come on, the bus sequence, like when they go to the. I liked it.
So I think actually with that, I have a lot of friends near and dear to me that take martial arts, and they were just like, none of that was accurate or just even kind of possible. Like that just doesn't make any sense. And if you're gonna do a movie that is like based in martial arts, you should get it right. And I was like,
I think there was more movie martial arts. Like what was the like Michelle Yeoh? What's the really famous martial arts movie Michelle Yeoh was in back in the day? You know, when they're flying around.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes. I think a lot of the fight choreography in Shang-Chi was sort of going for that effect, more so than like a more grounded, I don't know, like Ip Man, like martial arts.
Well, Dan, what about you? If there's can you sum it up? Was it even a good phase? Are we richer for having lived through this year of Marvel content?
I think this is the beginning of the end because like Kevin Feige is clearly overstretched. You could see that in the average quality of each project. You see now we saw that Blade was apparently like meant to film a month later, but then the director walks away. The script is a mess. Marshall Ali's not happy. They're going to hire a new director, and the movie got pushed by months, and then it totally pushed like everything else around it forward as well. That to me is again another sign of Kevin Feige being overstretched. I think what made everything up until Endgame magical was they weren't doing too much, especially not too quickly. Now they're doing twice as many projects a year, like half a dozen shows, half a dozen movies. They have control to even more characters. So now we can't get an X-Men movie that looks completely different from the MCU anymore, which I think is a detriment because Disney's sort of like creating this monopoly. And as long as DC I mean, hopefully this is why I'm really hoping DC continues to like do better and better, because I think the more the MCU monopolizes the superhero genre, which is the most profitable, the biggest genre in all of Hollywood today, I think it's bad. Like it's kind of like, any monopoly is bad for the industry that it monopolizes. MCU monopolizing the superhero genre is becoming more and more a detriment to it than a benefit. And Phase 4 was a great example of what happens when you basically put your business priorities ahead of telling good stories. And that's what a lot of those projects got dragged down. Looking ahead to Phase 5 and 6, I feel like we're going to see much of the same. I mean, I'll put up this graphic right now very quickly to just take a look at what's coming in Phase 5. And by the way, forget like all of the logos and everything you're seeing. Consider this. Everything in Phase 5 is going to happen between 2023 and 2024. This is just 2 years worth of Marvel projects. And there's a couple of things that are missing.
Daredevil.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's 2 years. Everything in 2 years. Yeah.
That's kind of nuts. But also I have a question about the numbers. How much money are they spending producing all of this content, and what are the returns? Because I somehow can't imagine that they are making that much net profit in the last phase.
Well, anything to do for Disney Plus, that's they account from an accounting standpoint. I'm sure they have ways to determine whether that was a money loser or not. But it's it's
big hit, a lot of money.
Spider-Man No Way Home was huge, but you got to look at it like from a business standpoint, the profits were split between two studios, Marvel Studios and Sony. So as good as it was and as profitable as it was, I mean, they still on average are spending now upwards of $200 million per movie. Thor: Love and Thunder was over $200 million to make, probably $100 million to market. They made like $800 million or under that at the box office. It actually made less than Thor Ragnarok, which was, I think, a far superior film. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness started out so well that should have like actually finished somewhere north of $1 billion. It just petered out at like 960 million. So its margin of profit was much lower. Shang-Chi and Black Widow were basically, and Eternals box office got destroyed by the pandemic. Unfortunate, be that as it may. And then when you look at what we're seeing with Wakanda Forever now, I'm concerned because the watchability of this movie is not nearly what it was for the Academy Award nominated Best Picture category. Like it was a Best Picture Academy Award nominee, the first Black Panther, and it made like $1.3 billion. I don't think Wakanda Forever is going to get to that number. And
it doesn't have that. It doesn't have
down.
a classic feel to it. It's not the type of thing that somebody's going to watch over and over again. And if they had made it a movie just about a day in the life of Wakanda and they really just explored the world, that might even be more interesting because that's sort of the appeal, is like they built that entire culture and they wrote the music and they created the costumes and the customs. And it's like,
I thought the soundtrack was better for the first movie. The costume design just became like
I did like the soundtrack though. I think it was good. The Marvel movies do a good job with the music in a way a lot of new movies don't.
But okay, are you talking about the soundtrack, like the songs, or are you talking about the score?
No. The score, like the score of the movies. They do a good job with that.
I'd argue otherwise. I think DC does a better job with those. Yes. The Man of Steel score, was superior to anything Marvel's done minus the Avengers theme. I think the only truly iconic music, like score, to come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the Avengers theme. And then I would maybe put Black Panther's like music, because like Ludwig Göransson is just an absolute genius. Besides that, I feel like there's much more the most iconic film music from the superhero genre. I think 5 out of like maybe like 4 out of the top 5 come from DC, whether it's the Danny Elfman Batman theme, both the Hans Zimmer as well as the John Williams Superman theme, which are like so fundamentally iconic that you ask billions of people around the world, they will know. And that's just my opinion. Again,
if you got Hans Zimmer or Danny
it.
Elfman on it,
they're not quite
you're getting a good product.
Heck, the Spider-Man music from the Sony movies is better than anything the Spider-Man in the MCU has done. Yeah.
Well, okay. I think
theme?
we've gotten off topic here a little bit, but if you're watching this and you're like, hold on a second, you jerks, Phase 4 was clearly the best. Make sure you fight me in the comments. I'll fight back, and tell us what you thought.
You can fight me in the comments on that. I'll fight you if you think Phase 4 is the good phase of the MCU.
Tell us what you think. Tell us if you agree, and be sure to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on all the stuff. We are on all of the stuff.